Alright, so in this video we'll be continuing with listening section 2. After the audio and the questions, you will see the answer key and you will also see the transcripts where the answers are coming from. This material is taken from www.aehelp.com, so please visit us there and join the full IELTS course.
Now turn to section 2. Take some time to look at questions 11 to 16. Listening section 2. You will hear a radio presenter interviewing a woman about the infamous ship Titanic. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16. Now listen carefully to the interview and answer questions 11 to 16.
Good afternoon to all our listeners and welcome back to History Now, a weekly programme that reflects on subjects of historical influence. Today we are going to speak with Dr. Andrea Smithson, an historian at the University of Glasgow. Good afternoon, Andrea.
Good afternoon, Peter.
What are you going to talk about today, Andrea?
I'll be talking about one of the most catastrophic events in maritime history, the sinking of the Titanic.
I can't wait for you to begin.
Thanks, Peter. The Titanic was an enormous ship. The makers called it unsinkable. From end to end, it measured approximately the length of 3 football pitches. It had the capacity to carry over 3,500 passengers, as well as the over 800 people on the crew of the ship. Despite its massive size and impressive capacity, the Titanic was able to cruise at a speed of 40 knots. This was in large part due to the 59,000 horsepower engine. Just how much is 59,000 HP? Well, in literal terms, it's like being pulled by 59,000 horses. More realistically, it's the equivalent power of 500 cars. On the maiden voyage that left Southampton, England, on the 10th of April 1912, there were 1,343 passengers and 885 crew members. There were 3 different classes of tickets for those aboard the Titanic. A third-class ticket was the lowest level ticket. At the time, it cost between £3 and £8. A second-class ticket cost about £12. A first-class ticket cost anywhere from £30 all the way up to £870. In today's money, £870 is over £20,000. You may be wondering what the people in the first class were paying for. They had luxurious rooms on the highest decks, delicious meals for breakfast, lunch and dinner, as well as the finest entertainment money could buy. On the other hand, those in third class slept in cramped rooms which were quite plain and small and did not have access to the fine restaurants and entertainment on the upper decks of the ship. Now I'd like to tell you about a few lesser known facts about the Titanic. Although there were 4 large funnels, or smokestacks, on the Titanic, only 3 of them were functional. One of the funnels was put there just to make the ship look even bigger and more impressive. The ship carried over 70 tons of food for the passengers, including over 40,000 eggs.
You now have some time to look at questions 17 to 20. Now listen to the rest of the interview and answer questions 17 to 20.
On the night of the 14th of April 1912, on her maiden voyage, the Titanic hit an iceberg. About 3 hours later, early morning the next day, the ship sank. The reasons for the sinking are numerous. First, the watertight doors, which were supposed to keep water out, didn't work properly. Second, the night of the 14th of April was incredibly calm on the water. Icebergs are easily spotted when there are waves crashing against them. On this night, there were no waves. The strength of the metal in the Titanic was not as it should have been. The metal became brittle in the freezing cold and was easily broken by the iceberg. Another big factor was the inability of the Titanic to turn quickly. Once the lookouts had spotted the iceberg, the captain ordered the ship turned, but it was too late. If the ship had been able to turn faster, it would have missed the iceberg. One of the biggest tragedies about the sinking was that there were not enough lifeboats for everyone on the ship. In addition to this, many of the lifeboats left the sinking vessel with less than half of the people they were designed to carry. For example, the first lifeboat off the Titanic left with only 27 of the allotted 65 passengers. This unfortunate occurrence can be attributed to panic on the part of the passengers and crew. One can only imagine the sheer terror on board the ship that early morning. 1,523 out of the 2,228 passengers and crew perished that morning. Most died from the near-freezing temperature of the Atlantic Ocean. Others drowned after being trapped in the lower decks. 705 people lived to tell their story, most of them women and children who were put on the lifeboats before the grown men were. Because of this, 94% of the first-class passenger women and children were saved, while only 14% of the third-class passenger men survived. Overall, 60% of the first-class occupants survived, while only 25% of the third-class ticket holders lived in the aftermath of this tragedy.
That is the end of section 2. You will now have half a minute to check your answers.
We hope you enjoyed this listening exercise. For more great practice and materials like these, visit us at www.aehelp.com and join the full IELTS test preparation course.